Imagine a world where books are so rare that most people will never touch one. A world where ideas can travel only as fast as a horse, a ship, or a tired hand copying page after page in a candlelit room. Then almost overnight, knowledge begins to spread like fire. Faith changes, power changes, even the way people think changes. How did one machine do all of that? That machine was the printing press. It did not just make books cheaper. It changed who could learn. It changed who could argue. It changed who could challenge kings, churches, and old traditions. And once it began moving, it was almost impossible to stop. To understand why this mattered so much, we have to go back to a time before mass printing. Before the press, books were copied by hand. That meant they were slow to produce, expensive to buy, and full of mistakes. A single book could take months to finish, sometimes longer. For most people, books were not part of daily life. They belonged to monasteries, universities, and the rich. Knowledge was trapped, and that is the key to the whole story. Because in the middle of the 15th century, in the city of Mainz, a German goldsmith named Johannes Gutenberg found a way to break that trap. He did not invent writing. He did not invent paper. He did not even invent printing itself, since earlier forms of printing already existed in Asia. But he combined several ideas in a way that changed history. His biggest breakthrough was movable type. Instead of carving a whole page into a block, each letter could be arranged separately, used again, and rearranged for the next page. That sounds simple now, but at the time it was revolutionary. Why? Because once the letters were reusable, books could be printed faster, in larger numbers, and with far more consistency. Gutenberg also used oil-based ink and a press that could apply pressure evenly to the page. Together, these ideas made printing practical in Europe on a scale never seen before. And then came the book that changed everything. The Gutenberg Bible. It was one of the first major books printed with this new method, around the 1450s. It looked beautiful, almost like a handwritten manuscript. That was important. People trusted it more because it still felt familiar. But under the surface, something historic had begun. Because now the same text could appear in many copies. That meant a teacher in one city could use the same words as a scholar in another. A merchant could own a book that once would have belonged only to a monastery. A student could learn from a printed page that had been copied dozens, hundreds, even thousands of times. And once people could read the same words, they could begin to question them. That is where the printing press moved beyond technology and into power. At first, rulers and religious leaders welcomed it for the same reason everyone else did. It made communication easier. But very quickly, they realized something dangerous. Ideas printed on paper could travel farther than any sermon. They could be copied again and again. They could be argued over. They could be shared with people who had never been allowed into the center of power. Then the press reached one of the most important moments in European history, the Protestant Reformation. When Martin Luther challenged the Catholic Church, his ideas spread with remarkable speed because of printing. His writings were not trapped in one city. They were reproduced and carried across Europe. People who might never have met Luther could still read his words. Supporters could spread his message. Opponents could respond. The debate became public, fast, and impossible to control in the old way. That was new. Before printing, religious arguments could take years to spread. After printing, they could shake an entire continent. But the press did not only transform religion, it changed science too. Scientists and thinkers could now share their findings with far more people. Diagrams, maps, and detailed explanations could be copied with precision. Errors could be corrected more easily. Ideas could build on earlier ideas. Over time, this helped create a world where knowledge was less dependent on memory, secrecy, or tradition alone. And that had a huge effect on education. Books became more available. Literacy slowly grew. New schools and universities could use printed texts. More people could learn to read not just religious works, but history, law, medicine, philosophy, and practical skills. The press did not make everyone educated overnight, but it opened the door wider than ever before. It also changed economics. Printers needed paper, ink, presses, and workers. Books became a business. Cities that produced books became centers of trade and culture. Information itself became valuable. That is a huge shift. In a real sense, the printing press helped create the modern information economy long before the internet existed. Of course, there was a darker side, too. The same machine that spread knowledge also spread propaganda, hatred, and false claims. Once printed material became easy to copy, it became easy to weaponize. That pattern may sound familiar today, but even then, people understood that controlling information meant controlling influence. So what is the biggest reason the printing press changed the world? It was not just speed, it was access. For the first time, knowledge could escape the narrow hands of a few and reach many. That changed religion by challenging authority. It changed politics by giving people new ideas to fight over. It changed science by helping discoveries travel. It changed education by making learning less rare. And it changed history by making information permanent, repeatable, and powerful. A single invention did not create the modern world alone, but it gave the modern world one of its most important tools, the ability to spread ideas. And once that happened, nothing was ever the same. The printing press did not just print pages, it printed change.